I spent 2 years saving up for a dream vacation for my parents. But one day, I opened my laptop and they had replaced me. No warning.
I spent 2 years saving up for a dream vacation for my parents. Flights, hotels, everything was perfect. But just weeks before departure, they gave my seat to my jobless sister, and no one thought I'd mind. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, this story will hit hard. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more real, heartbreaking stories. Your support means everything. My name is Alina, and I used to think love was something you could earn if you just did enough. It was a rainy Thursday when I clicked the final confirm on the travel itinerary. Rome, Paris, Lucerne, and Amsterdam, all wrapped into a 2-week dream vacation. Flights booked, hotels selected, restaurant reservations made months in advance. It was all for them, my parents, because for once I wanted to see their eyes light up from something I did, not something Samantha cried her way into. The moment the email confirmation came in, my heart jumped a little. I imagined telling them, my mom's eyes going wide, my dad stammering in disbelief. Maybe they'd finally look at me the way they looked at her, the golden child, the baby, the jobless wonder with a million second chances. I drove to their house with the printed itinerary in an envelope, nervous, like I was about to propose to someone. My fingers gripped the steering wheel so tight, my knuckles turned white. They were both in the kitchen when I arrived. Mom had her lemon chicken apron on, even though she hadn't cooked that dish in a year. Dad was flipping channels, but looked up when I walked in. "Alina, you should have called first," Mom said, wiping her hands. "I know, I wanted to surprise you." Dad chuckled, "You and your surprises." I handed over the envelope. "This one's a good one, open it." Mom raised an eyebrow and opened it slowly. As her eyes darted across the page, I saw her lips part slightly. Dad stood up behind her, peering over her shoulder. "What's this?" he asked. "A European trip," I said, trying not to smile too hard. 2 weeks, flights, hotels, everything taken care of. My gift to you both for your anniversary. The kitchen went quiet, just for a moment. Then Dad let out a low whistle. "Alina, this is a lot. I wanted to do something big. You deserve it." Mom looked up at me, her expression unreadable. "But you're not coming with us?" My smile faltered. "I booked it for 3. The 3rd ticket is for me." She glanced at Dad, then back to me. "Oh, well, are you sure you can get time off work? That job keeps you busy, right?" I swallowed. "I'll manage." Mom nodded slowly, her fingers still gripping the itinerary. "Well, it's generous. Thank you, Sayang." Dad patted my shoulder. "You're a good daughter, Alina." I nodded, but something in their tone sat strangely in my stomach, like a spoonful of milk gone sour. Still, I brushed it off. A few days later, Samantha came over. She barged into my apartment unannounced, flopping onto my couch like she paid rent. "Mom and Dad told me about the trip," she said, toying with her chipped nail polish. "Yeah," I said, keeping my voice light. "It's their dream vacation, finally giving them something real." She smirked. "They were wondering if you'd be okay not going. I mean, you're always slammed with meetings and stuff." I blinked. "What?" She laughed lightly. "Just saying. Europe's a lot of walking. Mom said you probably wouldn't enjoy it anyway." I didn't answer. I just stared at her, my throat tightening. She leaned back. "Anyway, I've never been to Paris. Pretty excited." That night, I checked the travel itinerary online. The booking had changed. Passenger 3, Samantha Mendez. My chest clenched, my jaw locked. I stared at the screen, rereading the name like it would disappear if I blinked hard enough. It didn't. They replaced me. I had gifted them the trip of a lifetime, and they replaced me. I didn't sleep that night. The glow from my laptop was still on at 3 a.m., casting long shadows across my apartment walls. I just sat there, rereading the updated itinerary like it might suddenly change again. Maybe it was a glitch. Maybe I clicked the wrong button. Maybe this wasn't real. But there it was, Samantha's name. My name? Nowhere. I called my mom the next morning. My voice shook, but I kept it together. Mom, I noticed the passenger list changed. Why is Sam listed instead of me? She sighed like I had just made her drop everything in the world. Alina, you sounded so busy. We didn't want to burden you. I never said I couldn't go. Well, Sam is in between things. She needed this. You have your career. You've already traveled for work, haven't you? Hong Kong, Chicago, that Dubai trip. This isn't about work. It's about you and me. Silence. She finally said, "We thought you'd understand." They thought I'd understand. Like they thought I'd just sit down and vanish while they rewrote the story with a new supporting actress. And you know what? I did vanish. From the family group chat, from dinners, from birthday brunches. I needed distance. Not because I was angry, but because I was numb. At work, I drowned myself in campaign decks, performance charts, and client calls. I smiled during presentations, nodded at performance reviews. To everyone, I looked like the picture of control. But inside, I felt like a draft that had been deleted before it could be saved. A few weeks later, a company-wide email landed in my inbox. Regional Director position opening, internal applications welcome. I stared at it. My hands hovered over the keyboard. And I typed, application submitted. 2 months passed. Samantha and my parents went on their dream vacation, flooding social media with selfies. I muted them all. I stopped looking. Every Eiffel Tower pose, every gondola ride, every wine glass clink, it all felt like daggers dressed in smiles. Then, like a ghost in heels, Samantha showed up at my office one Monday afternoon, uninvited. She flopped into the chair across my desk with that same smirk she always wore when she was about to say something stupid. "Guess what?" she chirped. "I don't do guessing games. Mom told me to ask if there's an opening in your company. I'm thinking I should try marketing. You know, since I've got a good eye for trends." I raised an eyebrow. "You think being chronically unemployed makes you a trend?" She shrugged. "You're the boss. Pull a few strings." I leaned back in my chair, watching her. "You want a job?" "Yeah." "Then go through HR like everyone else." "Ugh, why are you always so dramatic?" I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Why are you always so entitled?" Her expression changed for a split second, just a flicker of discomfort. Then she laughed and waved it off. "You know, Mom said you were gonna overreact." That word, overreact. Like my emotions were a fault line they refused to map, no matter how many times it cracked beneath them. "Tell Mom," I said coolly, "that next time she steals a gift, she should at least send a thank you card." Samantha stood. "Whatever, you always make everything about you." And she walked out, still believing I was the villain in her little play. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just about a vacation. This was about a lifetime of erasure. And I was done playing the quiet one. You don't plan revenge like a movie. There's no lightning flash, no dramatic orchestral cue. It starts like a drop of ink in a glass of water, slow, subtle, spreading until everything's tinted. Mine started in a meeting. I had just been promoted to regional director. Everyone clapped, there were handshakes, a few poorly hidden jealous stares, and congratulations that tasted like paper, thin and dry. I smiled through it all. Then came the performance reviews. I sat in on all the department reports, including the new hire interviews for a junior PR assistant. And there she was, Samantha Mendez. I stared at the name on the list, my face frozen, even as my chest bloomed with heat. HR had no idea who she was to me, just another applicant, probably propped up by someone my mom knew from the neighborhood church group or her old PTA clique. She hadn't even told me. So I let her interview. I watched her stumble through awkward answers about branding strategies and synergy, like she had Googled every term 5 minutes before logging in. She wore lipstick like it was armor and smiled like the whole world was hers to borrow. And I did something unexpected. I let her get the job. Not because she deserved it, because now she was on my turf. At home, I kept the apartment darker than usual, just warm lamplight. I stopped calling my parents, stopped showing up for holidays. When Mom texted me, "Don't hold a grudge, okay?" I didn't answer. It wasn't a grudge. It was a boundary. One night, I sat by my window watching the lights from the street ripple across my wine glass. The sound of laughter floated up from the bar downstairs. Somewhere, people were toasting to nothing. Meanwhile, I was trying to reclaim my own name in my own story. That's when the idea took root. This wouldn't be revenge with fire. This would be revenge with stillness. I would let Samantha rise. I would build her up. And then I would let reality do what I never needed to lift a finger for. Because the thing about people like her, they always believe the world owes them a climax. And I was going to let her write her own downfall with my pen. A week into her new job, she barged into my office again, this time in corporate wear 2 sizes too flashy. "Why didn't you tell anyone I was your sister?" she asked, closing the door without permission. I wanted them to make their own judgment. She looked skeptical. "So far, people are super nice." I smiled. "They usually are, until they're not." She laughed nervously. "You're weird. Anyway, I think I'm going to crush this." I said nothing, just watched her walk out again, high heels clacking with fake confidence. That sound stayed with me. The sound of someone building a stage they'd eventually fall off. 2 weeks into Samantha's job, and already the hallway whispers had begun. She doesn't know how to use the CRM software. Did she just send an emoji in a client email? Who keeps burning popcorn in the break room? It wasn't just incompetence, it was performance. She treated every task like it was beneath her, and every meeting like an open mic night. When asked to compile campaign feedback, she submitted a Pinterest board. When assigned a client pitch, she misspelled the client's name twice. But I didn't correct her. I didn't step in. I watched. Every time someone rolled their eyes behind her back or subtly excluded her from the post-meeting huddles, I made a note. Not to punish her, no. I was simply letting the mirror reflect what had always been there. A woman who had coasted on pity and parental blind spots, who mistook her sister's silence for weakness. I started to see myself in a different light, not as the ignored daughter, not the cold one, but as someone who had built herself piece by piece while they handed her pieces of mine. One Thursday, I walked into the pantry and found Samantha leaning against the counter, sipping an oat milk latte someone else had paid for. "Oh, hey, boss lady," she chirped. "I heard the Evans pitch got greenlit. Congrats." I grabbed a coffee pod and didn't look at her. It was a team effort. She tilted her head. Must feel good being on top. I looked at her. Her makeup was perfect, her smile brittle. I saw through it now, not just the fake confidence, but the desperation behind it. "I didn't climb to the top," I said softly. "I built the ladder." She blinked. "Is that a quote or something?" I didn't answer. I just walked out, leaving her in the silence. The next week, we had our annual all-staff recognition gala. It was black tie, catered, and live-streamed to our international branches, the kind of event where careers are made or unmade. As regional director, I was expected to give a keynote. I wore navy, clean, strong, unapologetic. The ballroom buzzed as I walked on stage. I felt the heat of the lights, the eyes, the unsaid things hanging in the air. I began. Success is usually measured in numbers, revenue, ROI, growth charts. But the truth is, success begins much earlier. It starts the moment someone tells you no, and you don't listen. My voice was steady. I told the story of my first campaign, my failures, the sleepless nights, the solo climb, and then, carefully, I let it slip. Years ago, I saved up for 2 years to gift my parents a trip to Europe, a thank you for the life they gave me. I was so excited, I booked 3 tickets, one for me so I could witness their joy. 2 weeks before the trip, I was replaced. The ballroom went still. That was the last time I waited for someone to save me a seat at their table. Since then, I've been building my own. A beat of silence, then applause. Not polite, not forced, real. And I caught it, out of the corner of my eye, Samantha standing in the back, her mouth slightly open. She knew. She knew I was talking about her. But this wasn't revenge. This was a declaration. I wasn't coming for her. I had already risen above her. The Monday after the gala, the office buzzed with leftover glamour. Leftover gossip, too. I walked through the glass doors like always, but the energy had changed. People looked at me a little longer. Some nodded with new respect. Others whispered like they were watching a live show unfold and didn't want to miss the next act. Samantha didn't show up until after 10. Her heels were louder that morning, her makeup heavier, her smile thinner. "Morning, Al," she chirped, eyes avoiding mine. "Big night, huh?" "Morning," I replied, turning back to my screen. She hovered awkwardly. Then, like a mosquito trying to draw attention, she added, "I mean, some people thought that story of yours was a little dramatic, public venting and all." I looked at her squarely. "You mean the story about being replaced?" She froze. "I thought it was honest," I continued, voice level. "But I understand how honesty makes some people uncomfortable." She opened her mouth, closed it, and walked away. That afternoon, HR sent me a report. Samantha had been late 4 times in 2 weeks, missed 2 internal deadlines, left a client call halfway through claiming a personal emergency. There were complaints about her tone, condescending, vague, unprofessional. I didn't call her in. I didn't need to. The system she thought would protect her was now holding her accountable. A system I had shaped by being everything she never bothered to be, consistent. Later that week, she barged into my office unannounced again. Her face was flushed, eyes darting. "Did you tell HR to write me up?" "No," I said calmly. "They do that automatically now. New oversight protocols." She narrowed her eyes. "You think you're so perfect." "No," I said. "I just don't make excuses." She laughed bitterly. "You've always hated me." I leaned forward. "No, Sam. I wanted you to be better. But every time someone reached out to help you, you turned it into a game." Silence. Her voice cracked. "I didn't ask to be the favorite." I paused. That hit somewhere deep, but I wouldn't let it show. "Maybe not," I said quietly, "but you enjoyed it. And when I gave something beautiful to all of us, you let them replace me." Her lips quivered. She looked at the ground. "I was scared," she whispered. They never say no to me." I didn't respond. What was there to say? Sorry? It was too late for that. Not because I couldn't forgive, but because I was done fighting to be seen. She left the room without another word. That night, I sat by my window again. Same view, same streetlights, but something had shifted. Not outside, inside. The rage had cooled. The ache was still there, but it didn't throb anymore. Just a dull echo. I didn't want her to be ruined. I just wanted the lies to stop. And maybe, for the first time, I didn't feel invisible anymore. It was a rainy Friday, full circle, like the day I booked the trip. I stayed late at the office. The building was quiet. Most of the floor had cleared out, just the distant hum of the cleaning crew and the soft tick of the thermostat. I was packing up my laptop when I heard the knock. It was Samantha. Soaked to the bone, eyeliner smudged, not a trace of performance left on her face. I stared at her. "You okay?" She stepped in without waiting for permission and sat down. Water dripped from her coat onto the carpet. She didn't care. "I got the HR notice today," she said quietly. "Probation." I nodded. I heard. She gave a bitter laugh. "Of course you did. You probably signed off on it." "I didn't have to," I said. "They just followed the policy, one I helped build." Samantha looked up, her eyes glassy. "Why didn't you stop it?" The question sat between us like a broken photo frame, something once whole, now useless. "Because I've been stopping things for years, Sam," I said. "Every time you missed a deadline in life, someone else covered for you. Every time you hurt me, I stayed silent." She blinked. I leaned forward. "I didn't ruin your job, Sam. You did. I just chose not to clean it up for you." She flinched, looked away. Then, after a long moment, she said something I never expected. "I saw the tickets, you know." I frowned. "What tickets?" "The Europe trip. Your name was on them. Mom told me to keep quiet. Said you wouldn't mind. Said you'd understand." I swallowed hard. "And you said yes anyway?" "I thought if I went, they'd finally stop comparing me to you." There it was, the confession, the fragile, cracked thing beneath all her bluster. I didn't say anything. She wiped her face with her sleeve. "But all it did was make it worse. You got everything anyway." I shook my head. I didn't want everything. I wanted them to choose me for once. Silence. Then she whispered, "I'm sorry." Not dramatic, not performative, just broken and real. I stared at her. This girl I had grown up with, fought with, cried with, who had taken what I gave and never looked back. And now, here she was, crumbling. I stood up, walked to the window. The rain smeared the city lights, turning everything soft and blurred. "You want advice?" I asked. She nodded slowly. "Don't ask them to choose anymore," I said. "Just choose yourself. Build your own ladder. It's harder, but at least it's real." She sat in silence, then stood. "Will you ever forgive me?" I turned around, locking eyes with her. "I already did, but I'm not coming back." She left quietly, like a ghost, and I sat alone in that glass office with nothing left to prove. I didn't feel victorious. I felt free. A month passed. Samantha kept her head down at work. HR didn't fire her. I didn't intervene. She stopped using my name as a shortcut, and people stopped whispering. Slowly, she began earning the seat she once thought she deserved just by existing. Meanwhile, I took a step back, not just from her, but from the story I'd been living for years. The one where I was always the dependable one, the invisible giver, the unchosen child waiting to be seen. I stopped waiting. I called HR and requested a month of personal leave. "Europe?" they asked. I smiled. Exactly. Rome was warmer than I expected. The sky was wide and soft like silk, the buildings old but proud, the coffee stronger than anything back home. I wandered through alleyways alone, sat in churches I couldn't name, listened to music from passing balconies. Everywhere I went, there were empty chairs. In restaurants, in plazas, at train stations. And I realized something. All this time, I had been waiting for them to make room for me, for someone to offer me a seat at their table, their trip, their idea of love. But love, I learned, doesn't come from who sits beside you. It comes from the courage to sit alone and know you are enough. One evening, in a quiet cafe in Amsterdam, I took out my journal and wrote, "They didn't replace me. They revealed where I never belonged. And that is a gift I didn't know I needed." I smiled as I closed it. I had come full circle. Not the kind you brag about on social media, the kind you carry in your bones. When I returned home, the world hadn't changed. Same skyline, same elevator hum in my building, same scent of jasmine from the neighbor's balcony. But I had. There was no grand reunion, no teary apology waiting in my inbox. My parents didn't send flowers or call to ask how the trip was. They probably assumed I was busy again. That was their favorite excuse for pretending I didn't exist. She's busy. And for the first time, I didn't feel the need to correct them. A few weeks later, I hosted a small dinner at my apartment. I invited no one from my family. Just 3 friends who had shown up over the years. The kind who remembered my birthday without Facebook reminders. The kind who'd sat with me in silence when I couldn't speak. The kind who never replaced me. We cooked together, laughed loud, ate slowly. It was messy and warm and real. At one point, I looked around the table and caught myself smiling, not because it was perfect, but because it was mine. This, right here, was the table I'd been looking for. Not the one where love was conditional, not the one where worth was weighed against someone else's weakness, but a table where every seat meant something and everyone was chosen on purpose. That night, before bed, I received a text from Samantha. "I'm leaving the company, starting fresh somewhere else. Thanks for not destroying me when you could." I stared at the screen for a moment, then typed, "You never needed my destruction. You just needed the truth." She didn't reply. And that was okay, because closure, I've learned, doesn't always come from their apology. Sometimes it comes from your own peace. I turned off the lights, climbed into bed, and let the silence wrap around me, not as a punishment, but as a gift I gave myself.